Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Kelly Green and this is What Else is New, where I'm going to go through a bunch of open tabs from the last 3 days, try and find something new from current events and the news, and in this case, in my personal life as well. We're going to start the show off exploring a little bit of music. This website that came across my feed, they liked one of my posts. I thought, well, that's pretty interesting. So we're going to give this a quick listen and let it play under as I give you the review on what is upcoming on today's show. So check this out if you can, if you like obscure and vintage music, vintageobscura.net. We are going to take a quick little look back 25 years ago, yesterday, March 13th, year 2000. Lovely little climate action. We're going to talk about climate tipping points. Another historical piece. Actually, I had a piece lined up, a recent interview of Dr. Helen Caldicott with Carl Grossman, but somehow that video disappeared since yesterday. So we're going to play a historical clip from Helen Caldicott on that theme. On the environment, we're going to talk about the Brazilian rainforest being cleared. A quick little clip from Jimmy Dore. At Al Jazeera, boatless in Gaza using old fridge doors to catch fish. From Contraband Camp, the threat to democracy is over. Microplastics are messing with photosynthesis in plants. Say that once fast, or more than once fast. Speaking of FAS or PFAS, we got rid of acid rain. Now something scarier is falling from the sky. Oops, I think I gave it away. And then we'll go back and take another quick little look at some B-roll from that action of 25 years ago. 5-year cover-up, how Trump's racist COVID strategy got buried. This is a quick little bit. Actually, it's a very extensive essay on the Hartman report, but I'm going to read just a tiny little bit. And this is going back historically with regards to that article. Whoops, don't need to see that. And don't need to see that. I think we're going to end the show. We're going to end the show with Essentially Expendable, The Death of Jason Hargrove by David Rovics, written almost 4 years ago today. Okay, first off, yesterday I was celebrating 25 years since being arrested alongside 11 other Greenpeace activists, including Canada's current Environment Minister, if he got sworn in the same today under Mark Carney's new Liberal government, Stephen Guilbeault. He was on top of this coker, and here's a quick little, this is my perp walk and talk.
What I'd like to say is that we're here to stop this coker and stop tar sand development in northern Alberta. I don't believe there should be any new oil development in this province. Alberta is the #1 climate criminal in this country, and we don't need any more oil. We need to find alternatives and work on getting some sanity back into this planet. Climate change is destroying everything.
I am getting put into the police car. Well, that was kind of fun, kind of exciting. 25 years ago today. I'm sure looking 25 years younger, that's for sure. It was a very cold day in northern Alberta. We were locked onto that thing for probably about 10, maybe 11 hours before finally being arrested. More on that later. Introduction. Almost everything you want to know about tipping points, but we're afraid to ask. This from the Doomsday Clock, Bulletin of the Atomic Scientist. The phrase tipping point was first coined by sociologist Morton Grodzins to describe segregation and white flight in the 1950s. It was later popularized in the early aughts by Malcolm Gladwell, who published a blockbuster popular science book called The Tipping Point, which looked at sudden social shifts through an epidemiological lens, how ideas spread like viruses. It wasn't until 2008 that the metaphor formally entered climate science when Tim Linton and his colleagues published the paper Tipping Elements in the Earth's Climate System in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. David Armstrong McKay, a researcher at the Stockholm Resilience Center, says a tipping point is when change in a system becomes self-sustaining once the system has been pushed beyond a particular threshold, and then that triggers kind of a state shift. So that system will completely change state in a way which is often abrupt or irreversible, but not necessarily in every case. The main thing is the self-sustaining change aspect, so that once it's been triggered, it will just keep on going until you eventually reach that new state. The Earth system is enormously complex, and so scientists have attempted to break it down into smaller pieces that could be vulnerable to abrupt or irreversible changes, what Lenton and his colleagues called tipping elements. Some of these would have impacts that reverberate around the world once they were irreversibly crossed. If, for example, the West Antarctic ice sheet broke up, it could raise global sea levels by 3 meters. In the United States alone, that would result in the loss of 28,000 square miles of land and displace millions of people. The impacts of regional tipping elements, like the mass die-off of coral reefs, would be more limited in geographic scope, but could still have widespread and catastrophic impacts. This issue of the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists considers several of these tipping points in depth, so please do take a look at that. This is a timely reminder that all of these elements contained within my videos I have links for down in the show description, which you'll find underneath that button where you click like and the subscribe and ring the bell and all that stuff. Okay, like I said, I had a recent clip of Dr. Helen Collicott speaking with Carl Grossman of the Enviro video channel. Check those guys out. Follow the link. And this is a piece, wow, that's a while ago. Let's give a quick listen.
We're chopping the forest down at the rate of 1 football field per second, in which live about half the world's species, of which there are 30 million, so we'll make them extinct within 25 to 50 years. And we're overpopulating like flies around the planet, this particular species called Homo sapiens. And we think we're God's gift to the planet. I would suggest we're the opposite. I think God made a mistake. I think maybe we're an evolutionary aberrant. We're the only species that destroy other species. I swim with the dolphins in the morning where I live in Australia.
Wow, wouldn't that be nice to swim with the dolphins? Dr. Helen Caldicott, she is a giant in the world of anti-nuclear power, anti-nuclear weapons campaigning, a physician, brilliant campaigner, prolific author. Check that out. But with regards to cutting down the forest, I thought that was a nice little segue into this piece on the Jimmy Dore show. I know some of my viewers and friends out there, they're not big on the Jimmy Dore. They figure he's, way off the deep end on the right wing side of things. I think he's certainly over there. He claims to be a leftist. We'll see where he lands eventually. But I wanted to get his take on this important issue about the Brazilian rainforest being cleared to make way for the next United Nations Climate Change Conference. Let's give a listen.
They're having a climate summit, and they literally cut down all this forest to build a highway for it. You think I'm kidding?
No.
A new 4-lane highway cutting through tens of thousands of acres of protected Amazon rainforest is being built for the COP30 climate summit in the Brazilian city of Belém.
This is one of the greatest things I've ever seen on the news. I mean, how absurd is it going to get before everybody stops believing that this is real and not completely one big mafia scam on you? Like that, come on.
Yeah, come on. Now these guys they're getting close. They're skeptical. They're realizing the hypocrisy that's going on with the climate summits, whether it be held in an oil-rich nation or whether it be held in Brazil where they have to clear-cut Amazon rainforest in order to host the conference. They're pointing out some very glaring hypocrisies with regards to the climate conference, but they think that the whole climate thing is a hoax, and it's not a hoax. And I've commented on Jimmy's videos. It's like, Jimmy, come on. Both of these things can be true at the same time. It's like that thing that also celebrated an anniversary yesterday, a 5-year anniversary, the global thing caused by that little thing. You know what I'm talking about. Anyways, these guys, they're kind of doubters of that official narrative, but we all agree that thing it exists. It either happened naturally, or it happened on purpose, or it happened accidentally on purpose. Okay, do you follow me so far? The point is that thing is real and it's happening. Where folks like Jimmy and his sidekick there kind of divert, and many people divert, is with the response to that real thing. All right, so there's a lot of debate around that. Climate change is the same thing. It's real. It is happening. And the debate should be around what is the response to that real thing that is happening. Okay. We can talk all day long about who caused it and what the problems are and who's to blame, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, we have to deal with the reality that it is a thing, it is happening, and we have to deal with it. So climate change, I don't know if I made my point there very well. Kind of gets me wound up a little bit on the old climate change. Now, something else to get wound up about, and something interestingly that Jimmy Dore falls onto the right side of in support of the Palestinians and Gaza. This is an interesting little story, complete with a lot of really excellent photographs, as you can see from the headline, the situation that's involved there. More than 15 months of Israel bombardment has destroyed most of the boats. We're in a very difficult situation today and struggling with the fishing. There are no fishing boats left. They've all been destroyed and tossed on the ground, says Habib. Outside the port is not allowed for fishing. If we go outside the fisherman's harbor, the Israeli boats will shoot at us. Look at these guys trying to make a living on pieces of scrap in the harbor. They can't even go out into the ocean. Wow. The struggle to survive in Gaza is immense, and the resilience and persistence of the Palestinians is legendary. Where's that quote from Anthony Bourdain about courage? Let's see if I can find that and throw it up here. Okay, back to America. The threat to democracy is over. This is a blog post from 2 days ago by Michael Harriot. What is the opposite of America? Is autocracy an apt antonym for democracy, or will we eventually become a dictatorship, totalitarianism, or oligarchy? These are just a few of the quasi-synonymous terms that scholars, journalists, and politicians have used to describe the void at the bottom of the slippery slope of a collapsed constitutional republic America is careening toward. Even if one doesn't subscribe to the narrative that Donald Trump is dismantling this 248-year-old experiment in self-governance, the question should not be dismissed. It's possible that the current political climate is just a phase the country is going through. Still, it should have a name. What do we call it? The answer is fascism. America fits the description. This is not what America is becoming, nor is it one of many possible outcomes that lies in this nation's uncertain future. Whether your understanding of fascism comes from the partisan hyperbole, America's most trusted authority on the English language, or the foremost expert on fascism, who wrote the definitive book during a life that spans two fascist regimes, it is impossible to deny that the definitions provided by linguists, scholars, and laymen are describing the current political climate. The fascism we feared is here. It's here. Okay, it's not a boiling frog effect where it's something that's going to happen into the future, right? It's here. It's happened. Okay, deal with it. Let's deal with that. We need to deal with that. We also need to deal with this. Microplastics are messing with photosynthesis in plants. That doesn't sound good. Microplastics are now a ubiquitous part of our daily physical reality. These minuscule fragments of degrading plastic now suffuse our air, our soil, the food we eat, and the water we drink. They're being detected everywhere researchers look, from Antarctic sea ice to human brains. A new study reveals how microplastics hinder photosynthesis across a wide range of plant species, including crucial food crops. It's really scary, says Marcus Erickson, a marine scientist at the Five Gyres Institute. The presence of microplastics can reduce photosynthesis by as much as 7 to 12%. A generalized reduction in photosynthesis at such a scale could have major implications for the global food supply. Decreased photosynthesis could also hamper efforts to fight climate change. Beyond photosynthesis, microplastics have been linked to health issues in humans and other animals. They're associated with an increase in people's risk of heart attack and stroke, and they've been found to hamper growth and reproduction in a number of species. Good old microplastics, or new microplastics. Is that new? I think messing with the photosynthesis, that idea is relatively new, and you may have learned about it here first. On the microplastics, we got rid of acid rain. Now something scarier. Yeah, I gave it up twice in a row. First I called it PFAS, and then I called it microplastics. But yes, while precipitation has become less acidic, a growing body of evidence suggests that it is now full of many other pollutants that pose a risk to public health, including microplastics. And unlike the compounds that cause acid rain, these pollutants are almost impossible to get rid of. New sources of pollution, including plastics and PFAS, the so-called forever chemicals. PFAS, which stands for perfluoroalkyl and perfluoroalkyl substances, are a large group of compounds used, among other things, to make fabric stain-resistant and pans non-stick. These modern-era substances take decades to millennia to degrade, have leached into the environment, reaching every corner of the planet, no matter how tall or deep. Microplastics, PFAS, and some other compounds, such as pesticides, are now so widespread that they've essentially become part of our biome, not unlike bacteria or fungi. They're so common, in fact, they're even found in the rain. Researchers estimated that more than 1,000 metric tons of plastic from the atmosphere fall on parks in the West each year, equivalent to roughly 120 to 300 million plastic water bottles. Plastic rain is an environmental threat that's harder to fix than the last one. It's much worse than the acid rain problem. We can't stop the microplastic cycle anymore. It's there and it's not going away. The story of PFAS is similarly bleak. Forever plastics, forever pollution, forever in our blood.
You wanted to make things that folks desired, that gave them joy. You wanted to solve problems, rectify things that annoyed. You'd always seen your mother scrubbing pots till she ran her hands. Thought that you could save it from all of that with your Teflon plan.
Here's a little bit of B-roll from that Suncor Energy I showed you earlier. I think this is going to show me locked on.
Okay, they can turn off the diesels now.
Now this is the diesel for the hydraulics they're running. They think they're going to be out of here soon.
Yeah, well, that's not happening.
That's not happening.
I shouldn't have said anything. I bet he cranked them up just because. You guys wouldn't know, you've been here for a while. Climate change is out of control. No new oil. Tar sands expansion must stop. The Alberta government is giving these people too many breaks. We're number one in greenhouse gas emissions in the country. We have to reverse that. We need to phase out fossil fuels now. Climate change is out of control. From the Arctic to the Antarctic, around the world, everyone's feeling the effects of climate change. We need to phase out fossil fuels.
From the Antarctic to the Antarctic. Wow. Not a very dynamic speaker back then. Of course, I was cold and tired after several hours already being locked on underneath that giant piece of equipment, unable to move. It was like minus 15 degrees Celsius with a wind. It was a chilly late winter morning, that is for sure.
We need to phase out fossil fuels. No new oil.
No new oil. Phase out fossil fuels. Climate change is out of control. That was 25 years ago. Okay? Dipshit like myself could figure that out, right? Just by reading available material. What's wrong with this world? Why haven't we been able to get that under control? So frustrating. So frustrating. Okay, we are going to jump shift a little bit. This is a piece from Tom Hartman Report, the 5-year cover-up, how Trump's racist COVID strategy got buried. Now, he published this yesterday, and it essentially, you'll probably see it online, essentially says how this policy led to the death or killing of 500,000 Americans on purpose once the Trump regime figured out that, or it was reported that, blacks and Hispanics had a disproportionate effect. They were dying at disproportionately higher numbers than whites were. Now, of course, this does go on to explain why that is the case. It's not a genetic thing. It's not a race thing. It's a socioeconomic thing. It's a systemic racism thing, where obviously blacks and Hispanics are going to fill out more disproportionately those lower income, front-facing jobs that are going to put them more at risk of the coronavirus pandemic. However, the clip that I wanted to show kind of tweaked my interest, where he says regarding Trump, he knew that if he wanted to win in 2020, that meant getting essential workers like transit drivers, store clerks, and people in slaughterhouses back to their jobs. Now, I had to stop there and wonder why he wrote it like that. The transit drivers, for sure, they never left their jobs. The transit didn't shut down anywhere. other essential workers, store clerks and slaughterhouses. These places didn't shut down, as far as I know. They kept going. These were essential workers, right? Like the hospital workers and the long-term care facility workers. All right, they kept doing their jobs, right? They kept being exposed to the coronavirus. Now, I knew that because at the time of that pandemic being called 5 years ago yesterday, I was a city bus driver in Edmonton. I love that job. Man, that was a good job. I took the threat risk assessment of the coronavirus very, very seriously. And following this story of a bus driver dying from coronavirus, this says 4 years ago, but I think it's almost 5 years ago. So I think this happened on April 1st or April 2nd of 2020. At the time, I was furiously organizing online bus drivers, not only locally, but around the continent, trying to raise awareness on this issue, trying to push for better PPE, personal protective equipment, so proper masks and gloves and proper ventilation in the buses, make sure we got hand sanitizers, maybe disinfecting using UVC. And failing all that, I was calling for a wildcat strike. Okay? Wildcat strike. So I called for the wildcat strike. I organized that. It didn't fly, but it did gain the attention of ATU, Amalgamated Transit Union President in the United States. He issued a letter right after I had issued that call for a wildcat strike, meaning calling the bus drivers to just don't go to work. It was serious. And the reason why I took it to that length is because of this issue. So let's take a quick look.
Paula, now we are learning more tonight about a DDOT bus driver who's died of coronavirus.
Jason Hargrove recently posted this picture on Facebook, letting Detroiters know he was still on the road driving DDOT buses to get people where they needed to go. Sean Lay is live this evening.
This coronavirus is for real. And we out here as public workers doing our job, trying to make an honest living.
That is DDOT bus driver Jason Hargrove sounding the alarm about his job and coronavirus back on March 21st. He even posted this photo stating, "I cannot stay home. I'm on the road for you." The drivers union confirming Hargrove died of COVID-19 overnight.
For us to get through this and get over this, man, y'all need to take this serious.
His words now about his major concern about coughing passengers is just stunning.
It looks like I didn't do enough, or we didn't do enough.
Yeah, they didn't do enough. So on that video, if you track it down, you can Google up Jason Hargrove. I'm gonna leave some links as well. It'll help you find that stuff. In that video, he's literally dying in that video. He's got the COVID bad. He's sweating. He's coughing. He talks about how somebody came up and coughed on him. I think he died like the next day or like within days of producing that video. And that shook me, absolutely shook me to the core. And it wasn't long after that, within 24, 48 hours, that I tried to organize a wildcat strike across North America to shut the bus systems down so we could protect those vital workers until we got that virus under control. Now, along with that event, I reached out to David Rovics, featured him on this show a number of times, North American folk singer, political activist, and all-around great guy, David Rovics. I love him. I reached out to him and I said, David, I don't know if you heard about this issue, but I wonder, and pardon my brashness, but I wonder if you could write a song about this thing that just happened, this horrible death of Jason Hargrove, Detroit bus driver. And he immediately got to task and wrote this song. So we're going to give a listen to that, and it is going to play us out today on What Else Is New. Before I hit play, I'm remembering I wanted to bring up that little notice for April 4th here in my neighborhood. Live podcast potluck supper. We're talking with the neighbors and we're having some food. So you can join us online. We're going to try and do that live here on the YouTube, and check us out. I'll send out an invite. We'll make it somehow so you could watch and or participate. That would be great. If you're in the Edmonton area, just come on down. It would be great to have you. Hit like, subscribe. Let me know what you think of the show. Drop a comment. Drop any hints or tips or questions. Send me an email too. Whatever. You know what to do. I won't keep you any further. We're going to play Essentially Expendable, The Death of Jason Hargrove by David Rovics, and I shall see you next time.
A pandemic is spreading. The health system's collapsing. You can watch it all unfolding on the screen. If you're afraid to go outside, enough groceries to hide, it may have been weeks since you have seen someone you can touch, and you miss it so much as you wonder what might happen next. Like when your savings run out and the choice is all about what kind of help you might be able to expect. Or perhaps when COVID arrived, while some struggled to survive, you were what they call essential. It didn't take long to see you got that wrong. The word they really meant was expendable. It didn't take long to see there was no emergency. Plans in place for something which all the scientists knew was just a matter of when there'd be a pandemic again. And the kleptocrats in power didn't have a clue. Otherwise, why did Jason Hargrove die? Because he kept keeping on, waking before dawn to do his part for society. Jason drove his bus, he didn't even make a fuss at the time of the impropriety. Somebody coughed, the virus was off. Not 2 weeks later, Jason would be dead. What if he had protective gear with sick passengers so near, with no barrier to protect his head? Otherwise, why did Jason Hargrove die? Stay home, flatten the curve, they say, unless we need you to serve food for us or care for all the ill. In that case, we'll call you a hero, like the workers at Ground Zero, where one by one the cemetery filled. Now in every bus and truck, the drivers try their luck, essentially told, thank you for your service. If these were the front lines, no one put up any signs. Did anybody sign up for this? Yes, why did Jason Hargrove die? Once the death rate peaks in days or months or weeks with each one of the virus's waves. Once we can take stock and recover from the shock of the sight of all of the mass graves. Will this be the impetus, this driver on a bus, along with so many, many more? The nurses and the prisoners, seafarers and farm workers, what will they all die for? Why did Jason Hargrove die? Why did Jason Hargrove die?